What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinSportsport.com publisher Edward Lewis.
And I'm Ryan Karchi, UCLA beat writer for the Orange County Register.
And we're here today coming at you from CSU San Bernardino all the way out in San Bernardino, where it was actually quite pleasant today, about 85 degrees, which was a change from...
A brisk 85.
A change from the million degrees that it's normally out here. But some news and notes we want to get into, first and foremost, from UCLA's first day of fall camp was the attrition. Kylie Fitz is no longer on the team. Jim Mora kind of said he's elected to leave and is looking to transfer. And then three freshmen, Aaron Sharp, the quarterback, linebacker Dwight Williams, and wide receiver Jordan Lasley are also no longer on the team, but they'll be back after the first game later this month. So Ryan, tell me about those kind of four departures and what that means for UCLA.
You know, I think with Kylie Fitz is probably the most interesting of those. Kind of an intriguing choice for him to leave, especially because it seemed pretty clearly he was going to be a part of the two deep at defensive end. Probably behind Owo Odighizuwa, is definitely going to get some playing time this year after not getting much last year. He said on Twitter afterwards that it wasn't about playing time, so I guess we might never know what the real reasoning for that is. But I think in terms of guys who won't be around, that's probably the biggest effect. In terms of the team overall, I don't think those three freshmen not being here for this time will really affect much, but for those guys, I think it's a huge hit to what they were going to potentially do this year. They won't be around here to kind of absorb the offense or defense. Obviously, most of those guys probably weren't going to contribute. Maybe Jordan Lasley, maybe Dwight Williams if one of them would have shown up here. But obviously that doesn't seem to be the case, and I think at this point you can probably consider them redshirts.
The other news and notes of the day came in injuries. Simon Goins was medically cleared, but he didn't practice today, and that created kind of a twist at right tackle, which we'll get into. Darren Andrews, wide receiver, has been ruled out for the season after microfracture surgery, which is, if you follow the NBA, it's pretty serious surgery, and who knows where his future goes from here. And Mossy Johnson left practice with a shoulder, his left shoulder, and he was carted off, and Mora said he's got to go in for x-rays. It didn't look good, so what are the impressions there?
Mora did say that it was potentially a mild AC strain. That was kind of what he was hoping for. It didn't look great at the time, but it also didn't look like he dislocated it. So at that point, kind of tough to tell. But I think, with Goins, I think is probably the most interesting question at this point. At right tackle, it's really a situation where you're going to have some competition in this camp. I'm sure Goins will come back healthy. That's what Mora kind of said at one point. But Connor McDermott looked good, and he's looked good for a while. So it's definitely going to be a tough competition. I think Goins' health probably is not playing in his favor at this point. McDermott has also had some health issues. He came in with a shoulder brace this time around, so maybe who's healthiest by the end of fall camp.
Brett Hundley said it really doesn't matter to him. He said McDermott's just as good as Simon Goins, so they'll go from there. The last thing we want to talk about today was, we know about Miles Jack, we know about Brett Hundley, we know about Devin Lucien, we know about Jordan Payton, we know about all the starters on this team, but today we got our first real college look at a lot of these new freshmen. I want to get a couple of your top performers from the new freshmen, or top standouts from the new freshmen that we saw today.
I'm going to go with good first impressions. I know these two guys, especially, they didn't necessarily jump off of the field like maybe Miles Jack did last year on day one. But Matt Dickerson, the defensive end, and wide receiver Alex Van Dyke, both of you just looked at them, look like they have a ton of potential. Not sure exactly what Alex Van Dyke might do this year, but he's got a ton of size. He's bigger than I thought he was. Not necessarily as fluid moving, in his routes and all that. But at this point, I think there's a lot of time for him to kind of develop into that. Looked like he had pretty decent ball skills, and if he's playing at the Y or if he's playing an outside receiver spot, it'll be interesting to see how they use him. Maybe he's one of those guys who they can use as a red zone target even early on. In terms of Matt Dickerson, I think he's definitely going to have an impact, assuming he lives up to the kind of hype that they've talked about so far. Mora mentioned him as one of the first guys to step into that defensive line rotation. So I think a lot of pressure is going to be on his shoulders to really step up. He looked like, he's a huge guy. He was watching him run. He can run pretty well for a big defensive end. Didn't make a lot of huge plays today, but I think he's a guy to watch going forward. How about you, Ian?
My two guys, Jaleel Wadoud, first and foremost. Wadoud was one of my favorite recruits, period, last year. I thought he was maybe the best recruit in the state of California, best player in the state of California, and it's already translating early. Demetrius Martin kind of was back there with him as a safety, kind of helping him out and coach. And throughout the day, all you heard was, "Great job, number two, you go get him too." And he was just flying around the field. I know it's a non-roll hitting practice or whatever, but you could tell this game is not too fast for him. And he's little, but he still plays bigger. So he's going to be a good prospect to watch. The other guy I liked was Kenny Young. thought he really took to this game like a duck to water. Coming from that SEC, kind of playing with all those SEC level recruits and stuff, this is kind of what he does on a daily basis in high school. So he came in here and really picked up where, you know, like a sophomore or a junior would pick up. So I thought he looks really good, really promising recruit. So those were kind of my two guys.
Jaleel Wadood especially, I agree. I think of all the freshmen today who made a great first impression, he definitely made the best one.
That'll do it for us here on day one of fall camp here at CSU San Bernardino. We'll be back tomorrow. The Bruins practice at 3 p.m. tomorrow at CSU San Bernardino. Until then, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.